Alexander Morton should just tell the truth, not half-truths, because that's what she uses, and she easily bamboozles people because she's good at it. And she can stay the hell out of our territory.
That was Slowloweet's chief John Smith with a message to Sea Shepherd activists back in July. I'm disappointed to report they did not listen to Chief Smith, and just last week took their activism to a whole new level. In my report at the end of July, I showed you some of the questionable research methods and tactics being used by Alexander Morton and Sea Shepherd activists at some of the salmon farms on the northern part of Vancouver Island. Taking pictures of employees in their living quarters, sailing up right beside the farm, and some very questionable sampling techniques. You can see the full report from my trip to a salmon farm by clicking up here. Without science on their side, and frankly public opinion of eco-activists dropping daily, I suppose Sea Shepherd and Miss Morton felt it necessary to ramp things up. Last week they stormed 2 separate salmon farms and served this eviction notice. Reading through it though, it appears to be more symbolic than anything. But what's most concerning was how the activists and the First Nations who stormed the facilities, as seen here, did not follow biosecurity protocols. Which, if you've ever been on a farm of any kind on land or water, you know this is very important to the health of the animals on site and puts the salmon at risk to contract pathogens. And it really showed a lack of consideration by someone proclaiming to be a biologist like Alexandra Morton. And quite simply, she should know better. The 2 salmon farms they boarded belong to Cermak and Marine Harvest Canada, the latter being the company whose farm I visited myself. If you remember, Marine Harvest Canada employs many First Nations, including hereditary clan chief Harold Seward, who had this to say about the activists.
I really don't like to speak against other First Nations, but I do have to say that their points of view are misinformed. I guess this thing that they've jumped onto here, they're trying to look for information, but I'm not sure exactly if they're going about it the right way. But my information that I have comes firsthand from my own experience. I've not only have my history of commercial fishing, I have my father's, my uncles, and my grandfathers, my great-grandparents. I have all of that history behind me, and I still am active. I own my own equipment and licenses to fish, and at the same time, I have been working with commercial or with a salmon farm industry for the last 19 years, so I have a fairly informed opinion on what is actually going on.
I was also very pleased last week when I received a statement from Tom Seward, another First Nations man who was concerned about the activities by Sea Shepherd and their activists. And what was more interesting was that Tom doesn't even work in the salmon farming industry, but he understands its importance for First Nations. Allow me to read a bit from his statement. Nothing is more upsetting to me than seeing professional activists using our people dressed up in traditional regalia to stir up support for their own cause. I've had enough of this one-sided campaign that pushes aside the thousands of hard-working natives that support their families by working in salmon aquaculture. This is what upsets many of us assimilated, working, and tax-paying Aboriginals. Quite often, it is the natives that are living off social support systems that are trying to shut down an industry in which First Nations and non-First Nations from coastal communities rely upon throughout the British Columbia coast. This anti-salmon farming campaign is not about the well-being of First Nations throughout coastal BC. It's all about generating attention to the cause and to generate more donations for their organizations. Well, that man is speaking truth to power. And it's time the activists, the media, and the government start listening. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.